Mediation began this morning to end the unsanctioned correction officers strike as it continues for an 8th day. Over the weekend, docs announced officers will be docked a day's pay for every day they strike. News 4 learned less than an hour ago, docs is moving inmates out of Collins Correctional Facility. In a statement, docs said it's due to staffing shortages, and the inmates are being moved to other prisons to, quote, ensure appropriate use of staff resources. Meanwhile, as COs continue to pound the pavement, we're hearing from people who experience firsthand what being inside a state prison is like. News 4 Sarah Minkowitz has reaction from a former inmate and a former correction officer. Sarah.
Jordan, the former inmate I talked to says he's not surprised correctional officers are now on strike, and he supports them. He says he agrees something needs to change.
The COs need help, period. One CO for 60 inmates is beyond ridiculous. That's not helping the inmates. It's not helping the corrections officers.
Anthony Work was incarcerated from 2013 to 2020. During that time, he moved around various state prisons, including Bear Hill, Mid-State, and Collins correctional facilities. He says he saw a number of things that made him feel unsafe.
There were officers that would fall asleep working 32 hours. You put me on a job for any longer than 16 hours, I'm falling asleep, period. So they fell asleep on the job. Anybody in the right state of mind is going to be physically exhausted.
Work says he also witnessed a female CO almost get assaulted and calls the CO to prisoner ratio alarming. Daniel Bauer is a retired correction officer who worked at Wendy Correctional Facility. He shares similar concerns.
The maximum security prisons have cells. The people that are working in these mediums, they're in dormitory settings. Yeah. It's one officer, possibly two, with 60 to 70 inmates. Yeah. How is that ratio even close to being safe? It's not. Yeah.
Christina, who did not want to disclose her last name for safety reasons, says her husband, who is a correction officer, is constantly working long hours. She says there have been times when her husband has ended up at the hospital during a shift.
He's been injured a few times. And it's pretty sad because it's like I get a phone call and I'm like, oh my gosh, what happened? And he's at the hospital. They just want to be able to come home to their family, or be safe in a dangerous environment.
Mediation between the Department of Corrections and the Correction Officers Union started today at 11. Docs sent me a statement saying Docs and NYSCOBA leadership will continue negotiating key issues with a mediator today, with the goal of resolving the strike. These talks are ongoing. In the studio, Sarah Minkowitz, News 4.